You're listening to the Shared Security Podcast with Tom Eston and Scott Wright, exploring the trust you put in people, apps, and technology.
This is your Shared Security Weekly Blaze for July 1st, 2019, with your host, Tom Eston. In this week's episode, the U.S. cyber attack on Iran, the sad state of cybersecurity in the U.S. government, and what you need to know about malvertising campaigns. Don't you hate air travel? I know I do. Rude people, crowds, the TSA searching you and your bags because of a toothbrush that for some reason looks like a weapon. And on top of that, your flight has a very high chance of being delayed or canceled. This is the unfortunate reality the minute you get to the airport. While you're dealing with the stress related to all that, the last thing you need to worry about is your digital privacy while you're at the airport. That's why I recommend Silent Pocket's product line of Faraday bags and wallets, which block all wireless signals, keeping your devices secure and completely off the grid. As a listener of this podcast, you get 15% off your order by using discount code SHAREDSECURITY at checkout. Visit silentpocket.com to check out their great line of products to make your air travel experience a little less stressful. Hi everyone, welcome to the Shared Security Weekly Blaze, where we update you on the top 3 cybersecurity and privacy topics from the week. These podcasts are published every Monday and are 15 minutes or less, quickly giving you news that you can use. Last week, the United States launched a cyber attack directed towards Iran, which disabled Iranian computer systems that controlled its rocket and missile launchers. This was a response to an escalation by Iran when they shot down an unarmed U.S. drone, apparently conducting surveillance in international airspace. Iran denies those claims and states the drone was violating their airspace. The attack was carried out by the U.S. Cyber Command, acting upon orders from U.S. President Donald Trump. This was actually the second option to strike back at Iran, as the first one was to launch a missile strike against Iranian radar bases, which would have resulted in human casualties. According to cybersecurity firms FireEye and CrowdStrike, there has been a recent rise in Iranian attacks on U.S. companies and government agencies, as well as critical infrastructure, such as the power grid, which also prompted for the U.S. government response. This is not the first cyber attack on Iran either. You may remember back in the late 2000s, it's believed that the US and Israel targeted the Iranian nuclear program with the Stuxnet virus, which essentially disabled most of their nuclear program at the time. I find this retaliation interesting, as it seems that in more cases, traditional warfare, like missile strikes, may start to be a thing of the past, when cyber attacks may actually do more damage to critical infrastructure and send a more impactful message than just destroying buildings and killing a bunch of people. Of course, cyber attacks could potentially be used to kill people too, especially ones that may be targeted towards hospitals or nuclear facilities, which could malfunction due to a cyber attack. On the flip side, you may remember back in May, Israel bombed a Palestinian Hamas military intelligence headquarters in retaliation for an attempted cyber attack directed towards Israeli targets. This was the first time a nation-state conducted a military strike in response to a cyber attack. I guess it could go both ways, and with the increase in cyber attacks and capabilities that all nation-states now have, it will be interesting to see how the future cyber war may begin to play out. In other U.S. government news, a new report published by the U.S. Senate last week showed that 8 government agencies have failed to follow basic cybersecurity protocols and have exposed U.S. citizens' private data for over a decade. The investigation itself took about 10 months and reviewed the past 10 years of compliance reports regarding federal information security standards that these agencies were supposed to follow. One of the 8 agencies even included, guess who? The Department of Homeland Security. The biggest issue found was at the Department of Education, where it was discovered that anyone could access and maintain a connection to the network for up to 90 seconds, which is enough time to launch attacks against servers and systems. In addition to that, 5 of the 8 agencies had not maintained current and complete IT asset inventories. This is a huge problem because if an agency doesn't know what systems they have on their network, how can they patch, update, and protect them? Because of poor asset inventory, 6 out of 8 agencies were unable to deploy security patches or other critical updates. So why is basic network security and asset management so difficult for the government? Well, for starters, it's a lot of politics and bureaucracy that takes place in these agencies. First, the people in charge, like the CIOs, don't have authority to make decisions in many cases, and that many of the systems and applications being used are so outdated that they are no longer supported by the vendors. This means that even if they wanted to secure them, there are no patches, updates, or vendor guidance to do so. This, of course, is just the tip of the iceberg, so if you want to read all the gory details, you can check out our show notes to read the full, stimulating 99-page government report. And now a word from our sponsor, Edgewise Networks. The biggest problem in security that remains unsolved is unprotected attack paths that allow threats to compromise vulnerable targets in the cloud and data center. But traditional microsegmentation is too complex and time-consuming and offers limited value that's hard to measure. But there's a better approach, Edgewise Zero Trust Auto Segmentation. Edgewise is impossibly simple microsegmentation, delivering results immediately with a security outcome that's provable and management that's zero touch. At the core of Edgewise auto segmentation is Zero Trust Identity, which automatically builds unique identities for all communicating software and devices by combining cryptographic properties of the workload with risk classifications. Edgewise protects any application in any environment without any architectural changes. Edgewise provides measurable improvement by quantifying attack path risk reduction and demonstrates isolation between critical services so that your applications can't be breached. Visit edgewise.net to find out more about how Edgewise can help stop data breaches. There has been a recent rise in a well-known technique called Malvertising, which involves attackers leveraging legitimate domains and services to serve up drive-by downloads of ransomware and other types of malicious files. The way it works is that malicious code is embedded in advertisements, which get shown to website visitors. If a user clicks the ad, they get directed to a compromised site serving malware, which then gets downloaded and executed on the victim's system. The big issue here is that most website owners have no idea that the ad networks they may be using have been compromised, and they have unwillingly become malware distributors. In the past, there have been several large successful malvertising campaigns that targeted legitimate sites such as the New York Times, the BBC, and MSN. Just recently, researchers found a new form of exploit kit called Green Flash Sundown that started in Asia but appears to be spreading across the world. This exploit kit was delivered via an ad that was spread through a site called onlinevideoconverter.com, which is used by 200 million users a month to convert YouTube videos to different audio formats. The payload executed some JavaScript and then ran an Adobe Flash object. Once the exploit kit goes through a series of checks, it will install a form of ransomware called Xeon. Xeon works like most ransomware by encrypting all your files and then demanding you pay a ransom in Bitcoin to get your data back. What makes this particular malware a little more devious is that on top of the ransom, it also installed a cryptocurrency miner and what appears to be a type of remote access Trojan called Pony. So how do you protect yourself from malvertising? First, keep your web browser and plugins up to date and ensure you enable Click to Play in your web browser settings. What this setting does is it only allows plugins like Flash to run only when you allow it to. Next, use a decent ad blocker like uBlock in your browser to help prevent ads from showing up in the first place. Lastly, the other common advice still applies. Keep your systems fully patched, updated, and use and enable the built-in Windows Defender antivirus if you're on Windows, and always be security aware and vigilant while you use the web. That's a wrap for this week's show. Visit our website, sharedsecurity.net, for previous episodes, links to our social media feeds, our YouTube channel, and to sign up for our email newsletter. First-time listener to the podcast? Please subscribe wherever you like to listen to podcasts, and if you like this episode, please share it with friends and colleagues. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next week for another episode of the Shared Security Weekly Blaze.